Hey everyone, welcome to the Couples Take On. I'm Austin, we got Shelley, and we have Pesha today from Muthalicious. And we are going to talk to you about conscious cannabis consumption and conscious food pairing with cannabis in light of a recent 420 event that we did. So, welcome, Pesha. Um,
Thank
you're welcome. Pesha, you want to tell us a little bit about your background?
Sure. I have a kind of an interesting background. So, right now, currently, I'm a chef and I'm a freelance chef. So that means that I do events, I do pop-ups, I have done catering, but right now I'm really focusing on teaching people how to cook. I find that people are really interested in the way that I cook every time I cook for them. And so I am concentrating on teaching people how to cook from their gut and using their intuition and how to follow recipe as inspiration versus following it to the letter. So you can move more freely and have more flow and ease and creativity in the kitchen. However, before that, I have a corporate background. So, and I bring that up because I saw some talents that I have from that background that came to light again in our experience this weekend. So yeah, just helping people do what they do, visualize their businesses and coming up with ideas visually, but also inspirationally is another strong suit of mine.
Awesome. So we all just put together a pop-up booth on 420, and that was a lot of fun
Mhm.
to do that all together. Shelly and I have done some pop-up booths before, but usually other people kind of did most of the work. Like this time we were like kind of in charge and like making graphics and making sure everybody's branding looked good together and like getting all the posts out. So we worked with Kamani Digital to help us like automate our posts to show up consistently in the mix. And then, of course, our cat just jumped over. Um, so it's kind of like there's a lot of moving pieces
Mhm.
with all that. And like, we're definitely, when people do pop ups, we're like, wow, like there's a lot of work that's
Mhm.
involved and like thought process and intentions and
And organization.
organization.
Yeah.
And then we started thinking about how it relates to some of our integration
Mhm.
stuff that we do of like, okay, set and setting, build up, you have a big event, and then at the end of it, do you just run to the next event
Mhm.
or you talk
Right.
about it? And so I was really glad when I was like, "Oh, hey, Pesha, so you want to debrief this?" And she's like, "How about next Wednesday?" I was like, "This is perfect," because most people like run away from
Hmm.
like talking about like how it went, and I was very excited to. This is the first collab that we did with Pesha, and Pesha was like, "Yeah, let's talk," and I was like, "This is really good. I really like
Mhm.
this.
Mhm.
Makes me want to work with you again."
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So.
Um, I definitely felt the same way. I think that our energy is kind of connected in a really awesome way. I think that, we each have very unique ways of working. And so, for me personally, I think I'm pretty good at working with lots of different personalities, just given the way I grew up. So I like balancing those things, and it was really cool also to be in an in person environment because I haven't really done that in a while. I've done like some catering and some cooking in person, but just like an event like that. So that was really unique, and I'm grateful for that experience.
Yeah, thank you
Yeah,
for driving out. I know it was like a couple hours each way, but
I got to listen
that
to
was
podcast.
what's that?
I got to listen to podcasts and catch up with some friends. So
Oh, nice, that's one thing I miss from like when I was teaching about an hour away. Dude, I was doing an ebook or an audiobook like once a week, and that
yeah.
was that was really I do miss that part of that. So I feel you when you said you got to kind of catch up on some of your podcasts.
Yeah.
Um, I was gonna say something and I lost my train of thought.
It'll come back.
Well, I think it was great to have somebody else in a perspective because, sometimes when you're working just either by yourself or in this case with someone else, it's just you or you and that other person, and that's the only perspective you have. And so a lot of times when people are at events, they might not feel like they could come and give advice or whatever, because a lot of people aren't welcoming that. They're not consenting to that.
Totally.
But at the same time, it was nice to have someone else, because then for me, it allowed me to have my own self-awareness and my own self-reflection, because I had mentioned we had set up the whole 10 by 10 outline in our living room and put the tables up, because we just weren't sure, like, what do we need to bring? How do we want it to look? You know, there was just a lot of things to go on. And so then once we got to the event, for me and how I operate, I really like the stability, and I like it. As much as I fight being in a box, there are certain things I do like, you know, but then it allowed me to see, like, it's okay to like soften, it's okay to pivot, you know, and that's what happens, is that you do have to pivot at times, because we were sort of taking a look of how it appeared when people entered the booth and the reactions and the vibe and all of that. And so when I had to leave to go do the photography for my son's prom, you guys like redid it. And then I came back, I was like, oh, I like this a lot better, because that wasn't even on my radar, because it was just like, okay, let's just get here, let's get set up, like, let's just get settled in, because that was
check the box that it's done.
That was like literally the idea of like having a calm root chakra, basically.
Well, you know, I think it's an interesting point that you bring up, because first of all, I think a lot of us, especially solo entrepreneurs or small businesses, you can get very caught up in perfection. And so the fact that you went progress over perfection, I think that you should really give yourself some kudos for that. You know, that like that's a big hurdle to overcome for a lot of people, and it's a barrier to even do the thing. So you did the thing, right? Like, so that is big in and of itself for somebody who struggles to maybe put themselves out there. But then as well, like, I think when it comes to me being there, I think what I see or what I saw happening is that, you know, as a couple, and I can attest to this from, you know, being half in a couple, sometimes when you're working on something, you get very attached to your idea, and you're used to having that kind of banter and like compromise in a coupledom. But then when you take it into business, you start to rely on not old, but like relationship habits. And this is not, it's not a companion relationship right now. Now it's a business partnership. And so by me coming in and making changes with Austin, I think that it took away, I don't know if the right word is threat, but like it took away that preconceived, like, I'm going to jump on my partner and judge what they just did, and give you an opportunity to look at it from a wider lens, and a fresh lens. And so, you know, I think that might be a really good takeaway for you guys as well. You know, having, not necessarily me, but like having somebody in your space when you guys are working on business to mediate sometimes, or be a buffer, or be a translator, so that you have ease through your progress, and you can see the you know, this, all of these smaller steps that you guys are taking to become more and more successful in what you're doing.
Like in Shelley's human design, it said, in Gene Keys, it said she works best with small teams.
Mm-hmm.
Which is like, you know, you add a third person and then you're like, okay, it's a small team, right?
Mhm.
I think it's also easier for somebody to see, regardless of relationship. But like, if two people are agreeing on something, and someone, you know, and the third person is not necessarily seeing eye to eye, if there were only two people not seeing eye to eye, it might be difficult to be able to really understand a wider perspective.
Right.
And so it gives you that opportunity as well to be like, oh, okay, wait a
Well,
minute.
so I guess we should jump back for a second of like, why did we change the booth around while Shelley was gone? Because I've changed
That's Shelley.
I've changed Shelley's office and room around while she's gone, and she's been very upset before. But this time she wasn't so upset. But Pesha and I realized that like we needed to reface our booth because of how the traffic was moving, and also so the people could see how they could interact with our content and our stuff and our manipulatives for demonstrating integration, and also just like kind of see more into the booth.
Mhm.
And so this is part of the thing that we learned online in like the Web3 space is like you have to be willing to pivot. And so in that moment, Pesha and I were just like, let's change this around. And we just started changing it. And we took a time lapse and we're like, well, I hope Shelley likes it. We're just like because this is the thing too. We could have always moved it back, right?
Right. Yeah. Nothing was permanent.
Yeah. And then I realized too, like you really need your booth. People need to see your booth from all sides and know kind of what you're doing. So if you have like just branding everywhere and they don't know your brand yet, then that you really want them to open up a conversation, kind of knowing what might be in your booth. That way they can show their interest. So like
Right.
we had a big banner that said conscious cannabis with some, cannabis leaves and stuff like that. But that was only one banner, and then I realized like you really need it to be seen from all angles. And so like that's something that we want to do for next time.
No, I think it was for me and my perspective on it, it allowed me to kind of realize like you can set stuff up all you want and prepare. And I think that's really valuable to do, but then don't be so tied to the outcome because in this case, it needed to change. And I think that's important in all areas of your life for growth is to have be able to pivot and at a moment's notice, so to speak. I mean, really it wasn't, but some circumstances, occur. But I think it also just like refreshes energy. It just changes kind of things. And like Austin said, you can always change it back. And I think sometimes we get so tied to like, but we just spent all that time doing that. And now you're going to change it back. And I get that, but I just sort of see that as like just old way of thinking. And it's, for me, it's not growth mentality.
You also, when you had set up the booth, when we were setting it up, you were giving direction. So you were clear on like how you wanted things to look. But
Right.
once you had set up, you were almost immediately willing to like kind of give me the reins. You're like, if there's anything you see here that
Right.
you want to adjust, go ahead and adjust. So that already gave me permission to start doing things. And as I was doing things, it gave me the opportunity to like redo things, and like think about things a little bit differently. I also took a walk around the festival and like absorbed the energy of like what was going on. And it gave me, I mean, a very literal different perspective when I walked back to the booth. I mean, that's when it occurred to me that like, oh, we're hidden. When I came back, I was like, we were right at the front entrance, but like we barely saw anybody walk. They had to like go, they would totally see that clothing company that was next to us because they were facing
Right.
walkway and we
Right.
were like behind them. And it looked like there should have been like two more booths.
Yeah, like a U shape.
Well,
Yeah.
so the people who were, okay, so we had the clothing company in front of us, and then right across was another. They had been to our side and they decided, so they were very experienced, I'm realizing, and they realized there was no visibility for them. And so they moved and went to a different spot, and I saw people there constantly.
Yes.
And so that's like some stuff for me in the future, like to push some bounds of like going and either asking or just doing, because sometimes I do struggle because I just don't want to like step out of line type of shit. But at the same time, if my needs aren't being met, and in this case it was visibility, well, then this is the pivot. This is where you like just decide I'm going to take this under my own. And I mean, I almost feel like we could have gone and set up the booth anywhere because there was space other places. I know they had like different themes, like Munchie Land and all of that, but I was like, we could have easily been over by the artist.
And we also could have like moved over 2 spaces to be closer to that t-shirt, Stockton t-shirt guy.
Yeah.
But I think at the end of the day, we made a smart move. It was towards the end, but like Austin was saying, you want to be able to see things from all angles. And we did not take into consideration that there was a walking path right behind what we set as the back of the booth.
Yeah.
So as soon as we took that table and moved it, and we took that marquee sign and wrote, you know, like, oh, come this way, you know, there was opportunity to be able to access now from several different
Well,
ways.
you remember like right when we started moving stuff, like just when we were starting to think about it, that guy approached from the back of the booth because you and I were standing in the back of
Exactly.
the booth, the back of
Exactly.
the booth. And then we turned the booth, instead of being like a U shape, we made it like a pass through with our 3 tables in line so people could walk through either way. And so that, yeah, it's like being willing to pivot. And then we started moving things, and then Pesha started moving things. And it was cool because we started working in a way like synergistically together. And then all of a sudden we had like kind of fresh energy in our booth. And then people started coming by in that because of that.
But I think that's important for people in businesses, even in your home. Like I was telling you guys before we started recording, or maybe I didn't, but I'm feeling this like desire to like really clean and scrub. I guess it's spring cleaning time. And so I kind of felt like when we changed the energy up, I felt different because I was a bit ungrounded because it was very loud for me. And it was a very long day. And then a lot of times being around a lot of people. But then I realized, and a lot of this is the awareness after the fact, you know, was that it did change the energy up in a great way. Not that it wasn't good before, but that's where I sort of see business owners get stuck. And it's like, you got to change your energy up. Do you need to clean stuff up? Do you need to donate? Do you need to like just put it away and bring new things out? Like it just, people can define it in their own way, but I just noticed that it like really helped my own personal energy.
Well, that's something that we've been doing for our clients too, is we're taking brick and mortar businesses and we're coming in with helping them organize their energy, take care of energy leaks, where are they wasting their time, streamlining things, helping them with enough support to get done the things they really want to get done. And so it's like, it's kind of like we got to see that in action for ourselves by like letting you kind of jump in there and be willing to receive your feedback. Because you like you said, I think this kind of started when you and I were just chit chatting after I got back from, I had to go film a client, and Shelley and Pesha set up the booth. I got back, then Shelley went to go with Nolan, and then Pesha and I were talking, and I was like, hey, what's your birthday? Have you done your human design? We just start talking, and it was like, Pesha's like, oh, Austin, you this needs to be an offer. You need to do this in real time. Like people could spin the wheel and they could win 5-minute human design with Austin or whatever. I was like, oh. And so Pesha, one of the things that came up is her outer sense is really, really good of her person or whatever. And she's like, yeah. And then it said something about Pesha sees where there might be misunderstandings. And then we started looking at that in our booth and we were like, oh, there's some pivots here. And
Yeah,
like,
so sorry, I didn't mean
go
to
ahead,
cut.
go ahead.
Right before you came back from the filming,
Yeah.
Shelley and I had talked, and that's when Shelley was like, just do your thing.
Right.
And I was like, okay. And I started judging some things, but I took a walk and I took a conscious cannabis break.
Nice.
And I came back and I used that energy to really feel what was happening. And one of the things is like, and we talked about this yesterday as well, you need to really be demonstrative to people. You really need to explain yourself, because we think about things in a certain way and we are the expert in one particular thing. We're used to thinking about it in that way, and it seems obvious to us because it comes to us naturally. So for you, when you set up the booth, your tarot cards, your spheres, I forgot what they're called, those things in your mind were, yeah, you use those things, you pick them up. The library of books that you put out, those were all things that you had intended for people to look at and to touch. And even though that seemed obvious to you, when I came back and after experiencing the other booths and seeing how people were interacting with things, I came back and went, oh, nobody knows that they're allowed to touch these things, even though you're using words like, oh, go ahead and look and take a look or whatever. We're an informational booth. There were so many people concentrating on, can I buy something? Or is there something to buy? What are you offering? Like, what is the offer? And in your mind, it was apparent. And in their mind, they didn't know you from anyone. And so a lot of times we think we are over explaining ourselves or we're being super obvious. And in someone else's world, it's like a discovery. It's an aha moment. It's a, as soon as we took those spheres and I made one smaller and one bigger after playing with it and showing somebody like, okay, this is what's like when your mind is expanded. What happens when it collapses back? What do you do with that information? Your whole thing. But by having that conversation and allowing them to start playing with it, things like if you had little signs that said, play with me, look at me, like pretend you're in Alice in Wonderland, right? And like put these like playful things out, or just having things for people to touch and play with is amazing. They need permission first.
Yeah.
And I think that's a learning in general, right? Like I needed permission from Shelley to even start playing with things. And then I did stuff. And then like, there was just like constant permissions being given once we got the momentum of permission going.
Right, like I even wanted to make like little, like you said, make little signs. You could like make them with little toothpicks that says like play with me or whatever. And I was gonna make one that said like PlayStation, right? Like people are like PlayStation, like yeah, you get to play with it or whatever. And then like in the book section, we could put up like what book is calling to you, grab it and let's talk, It's like the permission to do that. And then also like the tarot cards when we do readings or Shelley does readings or whatever, everybody's always wants to buy them. And then you said, okay, you guys need to set up your Amazon affiliate thing. And then I was like, oh, we could put a QR code on the back on the UPC. That way, because we had an info booth, an informational booth. And so
Right.
some guy came in like, I want to buy something. And it's like if we just had the QR code, he could have just like scanned it and bought it on Amazon and kept the conversation going. Because I think some people want to buy stuff as a way to honor your time.
Right.
So it's like, you like that's there's always a buyer, and you have to be you have to like you have to make it available to them where they're at, right? So like,
And it's like, there's no shame in selling, right?
Yeah.
Like
right.
you guys, I understand you're like a conscious people that you're there to help. And so sometimes that also feels like, oh, I don't really want to, when money starts getting involved, it feels like less altruistic or something. And it's like you're not helping less by also making a living doing what you're doing. What you're doing actually is you are making it possible for you to provide such a unique service and experience for people by being able to make a living doing that. And I think we wrap a lot of shame around like selling things, especially if we didn't like a book, right? Like a book somebody else wrote. I could see like where the conflict might come in.
Yeah, like yeah, the conscious and integration stuff, and like then suddenly you're aware of yourself and you're like, well, I don't want to be predatory. I don't want them to buy from a place of like anxiety. And I don't want them to buy from a place of shame. I want them to buy in a place of like they're empowered and they're calm and their nervous system feels good. But like you still have to give them the opportunity to do that, right? But like next time we're gonna do a booth where we're selling stuff.
Well, I think we do need to have the paper and the ability to write down the email addresses, because the idea that we had ended up, we didn't collect any.
Well, we did get people like on our graphics and stuff, like people like they scanned their code and followed us. But like probably would have been better to like I think people are willing to write down their emails. I think people are a little hesitant sometimes to give their phone number. But you know, there's that. And then also like email sequence of like thanks for coming to the booth. Here are the links to buy the Amazon stuff that we had in our area, you know, blah blah blah. We're doing our integration class this day. Like the whole like flow, like you're teaching them how to buy from you.
Right.
And I've seen other people do that. It's just like you got to direct the traffic, you know, to you. And it's like, but you don't have to like be predatory about it and be like, yo, you need to go buy stuff.
Right.
An idea that actually just came to me, and I don't want to lose it, so I'm going to tell you now.
Yeah.
When you were talking about the books and like how to get people to like be interested in the books. Another thing that would be good, because you're saying you're telling them to go find something that interests them and let's talk about it. I think that still might be very difficult for people because it's a book and they're like wandering around like a festival, and it's like, so maybe if you take each book and you pick a few excerpts out of a handful of books that really speak to you for particular issues or problems, so that when somebody comes in and you're having a conversation about whatever is going on with them, you can say, oh my goodness, I recommend this book for you. And here's why. And you have a little post-it note tab, right? Maybe it's color coded, like all of the yellow ones are for people with terrible anxiety, whatever. You know, you open it up and you're like, this really spoke to me or a client or whatever reasoning you have that this passage speaks to them. It should be like no more than a paragraph, preferably just a handful of sentences that somebody can read quickly and resonate with. Then you say, if you're interested in this book or any other books, QR code, scan it, and it takes you to a landing page where they put in their email address, and you then email them a PDF with a link of every single thing, but in particular that book.
That's interesting because we have been talking about restarting doing book club. And also like Shelley and I read really fast. And so like those picking up those things and making it more digestible. I like the color coded thing. Like actually what we could do, Shelley, is get post-it notes for all the chakra colors, and we could do it that way. Because what's funny is like Shelley and I are very intuitive with people. Like, you know, if they come to us with something and we're like, oh, that's like a ego solar plexus thing. Or Shelley's like, ooh, that's a root chakra safety thing.
Right.
Or that's their third eye is blocked or whatever.
Well, I was almost thinking potentially we could create our own oracle cards. It's not super difficult. You could do your own I am affirmations, and the people would just...
Absolutely.
And that was something that had occurred to me, and we could sell that. And then of course, t-shirts, candles, things like that. Because I agree, people wanted to come in and they were like physically, I feel like somebody said to me he had money in hand and he wanted to buy.
Yeah.
And like,
yeah, Pesha told me that.
Information booth. And then it was like, okay, but that's the awareness and the ability to pivot and the ability to not fall into... That was such a failure because we didn't think it. No, now it's like, no, this is the opportunity. This is the growth, the opportunity. And it might be we put some of this into place and it doesn't work out. And then you evaluate it. And then you have the next idea and the next movement.
Well, also like that's where you kind of bend the rules too. Well, we're an info booth, but what would you like to buy, right?
Right.
Like what's, you know.
And you also aren't necessarily selling anything. You're having them sign up for an email address, and then you are giving them a list of tools. And, you know, yes, I think it's totally valid that you have this whole list of ideas of products that you could create. And that's awesome. You take now the steps to go that direction, but you already have all of these tools, these products that you use that have gotten you where you are. And so I think it's really, I mean, it's no different than like a university. You go to college and they say, we want you to get these books for these classes. The professor didn't write the book, most likely. They're teaching from the book, but that doesn't disqualify the professor's knowledge, and it doesn't disqualify the book for being. It's that they work symbiotically. So you're saying these are the tools that we use, and eventually we're going to have these tools, and maybe it's even like if you have people who are interested in your tools that you create, then maybe you have like a little founders network, like the founders book club, or like the founders like reading club. Like maybe you're doing like human design readings for people virtually once a week or once a month or something like that, where there's like a group of people that are waiting for you to put your own things out. But meanwhile, why wouldn't they use the tools that you use? And why shouldn't you benefit from being the conduit for that information?
Yeah, it's like that's the whole point of our booth, was like doing things consciously. Like, okay, what are we doing? Like, is it working well? Is it not working so well? What are we gonna try? And like literally we were doing that in real time all day. And it was like, what do you want to say?
Well, I was just gonna say, I will say, when we kind of briefly talked to them about the conscious cannabis and then the journal, I think making the statement, is cannabis utilizing you, or you utilizing cannabis, or however, that I think stuck out with
Yeah.
many, because I remember that one guy, we like really
Right.
perturbed his system. He got all like,
Well-
oh yeah, I know what I'm doing,
Well,
or whatever.
like-
And it was like, okay, we didn't like
Well, like I actually, I showed this to more people. I'll put a link down below, but some people were like, this looks like a book cover, and you can make a little mini ebook
Mhm.
and take each of those things and like tell it from our perspective about our own conscious cannabis usage, which could also be conscious anything, right? Because how do you consciously show up at a festival? How do you consciously set up a booth? How do you reflect on that and like put things into place for next time? Like, so in real time we had this conversation too, where it's like, okay, I definitely want to spin the wheel thing. People could win a quick 5-minute human design thing with me. And literally right after I did it to Pesha's like, this should be an offer. Some girl a young lady came to our booth, and she was, I think Pesha
It was a
connect.
woman I had already
Yeah.
spoken to. It was when I did my wander, and I had already talked to her about her art. And I had
Right.
mentioned right before you did my human design, and then she came up, and that's when we were like, hey, do it.
I literally did it. Like, Pesha just said, like, you should do that as an offer. I was like talking to her, and I was like, oh, hey, what's your sign? Are you into astrology? And she's like, yeah. And I was like, oh, I was like, hey, do you know your human design? She's like, what's that? And then I was like, oh, well, I was just doing it for Pesha. Here, like, look at Pesha's. Do you want me to do it for you? And she's like, yeah. And then we like pulled it up. I was like, does this feel like you? Like, she's like, oh wow. Like, it was like a total new way to look at like her own life experience. She's like, wow. And then she's like, I'm like, do you want some more information? She's like, yeah. I gave it to her. And she's like, I'm gonna send my sister over. And I was like, okay. And so then her sister comes by, and we had her sister was like a, was it marital therapist?
Oh,
Yeah,
LMT.
she was some therapist.
Yeah, like a therapist, mental health thing. And I was like, we were talking, and I'm like, did this human design thing. I'm like, oh, like your sense of self, your feelings, your emotions based on your human design. Does this feel like you? Like, what do you think? She's like, yeah. And I'm like, well, I know like the science clinical stuff, but like here's the woo stuff. She's like, well, like some of this makes sense. And I was like, yeah. And so basically that was kind of like confirmation to me of like, yeah, like do a spin the wheel, win a free thing. Also, I'm inclined to make not a 10 by 10 booth, but do a 10 by 20 booth. And in the second booth, people can sign up with us for like actually doing a deeper dive on the human design. And that way all of us have a break from being like on the floor working the booth to like we get to have some one-on-one time with people, like human design, gene keys, oracle things. And then with you, like part of this journaling practice was like planned snacks for your munchies with Muthalicious. And so Pesha had like some snacks based on moods and intentions. And it's like we could make a sign up sheet, be like, okay, let's plan with intentions your next cannabis journey. And like plan the food. What's your set and setting? What are you doing? What are you hoping to get out of it? And like, Pesha, this might be a good time for you to talk about a couple of your little, what did you call it? Like the moods, right?
Energies,
What's that?
the energies.
The energies, yeah.
Really
More about
quickly
that.
though,
Yeah.
I want you. I just had a little thought to myself, and I think I mentioned this before, but like in terms of like bringing people, like especially when you're talking about doing readings in your booth and having opportunity to be seen in traffic and what have you, you should have some sort of sandwich board or some sort of board that can stand independently. This is a whole thing where like maybe you ask permission or maybe you just do it and ask for forgiveness later. Because there was somebody at the food air in the food section that had set something up, and it was a really like janky like ramshackle duct tape sort of sign, but it said like there's like fresh fruit and vegetables, and I think it, you know, like I think it might have been like Filipino food, where it was like it was very specific, but like maybe you wouldn't have noticed that or even gone into the food section if you didn't see that sign. And I think
Right.
that having things like a reading is something that will like, ooh, like let's go find that food. Maybe they wouldn't have even come into your section to begin with. So thinking about things like that, like how do you drive traffic from outside of your actual
Well,
space?
like part of me started thinking like I should just like carry around the flyers and just be evangelical about it, you know? But you
Well,
know,
there were a few things there, like I didn't feel like other booth vendors came and visited, but then it hit me like maybe they're in a similar situation, it was only them that was like there, they might not have had any help or busy, but that was just something that occurred to me. I didn't, well, there wasn't anything that differentiated us being vendors from being,
oh, like
Information.
vendor badge.
yeah, I didn't
Oh.
see, like, I kind of think that was something that just is occurring to me.
I didn't see any other booth that was just informational either. Everybody seemed to be selling something.
Yeah, I would agree. It might be possible. It might be that we were the only informational one there. We're not, you know, there's some things for improvement
Well, like,
down the road.
like
and-
a banner that says information.
yeah.
Like the other thing too, like I was thinking about is like it'd be really cool. Like I know a lot of us vendors like cross posted each other's stuff
Mhm.
getting ready for the festival. But like I would love to do like a big Zoom call like a week
Mhm.
before, a few days before, a couple weeks before, and just like kind of get to know each other as vendors a little more, and then that way we know where to direct people. Like if somebody says like, "Oh, I want like I'm looking for snacks to go with, and I want somebody to help me with my snacks," and like, "Oh, you need to talk to Muthalicious," and like, "Oh, what kind of snacks do you want?" Oh, you want fruit bowls? Oh, okay. Fruitopia is over there, and it's like that way. That way we can like, get everybody connected with what they're looking.
Right.
Because
And,
like
and
literally, the
there.
the one of our journaling question is like, what's the set and setting? What is your intention while you're here? And it's like almost like we probably could have printed that out and put it in each one of the goodie bags for the
Yeah,
first
now I'm
100
realizing
people.
that we could have had it put
Oops.
in the goodie bag. I didn't even though see people carrying around the bags, like the good, I don't know.
The other thing is like we were talking about like like Shelley and I have lots of slogans and stuff, and it's like printed on bags, put it on t-shirt because people need to carry stuff. And then Pesha found a person doing pottery that was doing like
Mhm.
cannabis and psychedelic stuff, and Pesha's like, you should go talk to them, and then you could carry some of their like plates or cups or whatever at your booth, and then you have something to sell. Because honestly, when I go talk to people, like I feel like I want to honor their time. In a way I could honor their time is to buy something from them. And so now I'm seeing like, there's that saying like people buy or you, let's see, how does it go? People will buy from you in the way that you like to buy from others.
Mhm.
So like Shelley likes to follow people and investigate and feel comfortable and then she buys. Or she does, or that could happen really fast. That could also happen very slow with Shelley. But when she knows she wants to buy, she buys. For me, I kind of like I think that I want something and I see where I can find it and then I go buy it. So it's like everybody has these different buying strategies, and so when you have a booth, you kind of want to be able to have all those options available for people that would be
Right.
an ideal client, right? So it's all kind of interesting. I really liked, well, like even this talk right now, we're integrating our experience at the
Yeah.
booth. We're showing what integration looks like in real time. And like even I was thinking the reason we're talking about all this too is Shelley and I are going to be doing several of the goddess festivals, and we're going to be having booths, and we're going to be speakers, and we're like, okay, let's get this really dialed in. And so we really appreciate your like from your human design, you were seeing things that others didn't see. Like, oh, you need to direct people. You need to show them how to play with the manipulatives to open the conversation. I was like the little chalkboards and things like that. I was like, yeah, like I'm like thinking back to when I was a teacher. I'm like, what did we do? We like give them fucking instructions on how to play with this stuff. It's
Right.
like, and then you
Right.
look back to like whatever grade level or where they're at, and then like the really little kids is like, you write like, hey, play with me, or play with me, or you show them like this is for you to play with. Here you go, have a good time. So I'm like, okay, we need to meet people where they're at.
And I think like I love your idea of making it a bigger space and having different sort of quadrants in the space. Another thing that I would also consider is either a private space for you or making sure that your car is set up for you to have some quiet space. You know, Shelley had mentioned about having her headphones and like going into her car. I didn't particularly need that, but my energy I have a really like weird like chameleon like energy sometimes where I can just sort of like just sort of like hit that wave, you know, the way a surfer will just like catch this huge tidal wave, right? But like somehow they ride it in and like I'm able to do that sometimes. So when I'm in a situation like that, even if there's just a lot of noise, like normally that would drive me insane, I've already mentally prepared myself for that. But maybe if you have some sort of respite set up, and maybe if it's not in your car and you do have it in your booth, it could be a respite for somebody who also needs that kind of um, time out in a
Well,
space that could be really very appreciative.
remember when like so we did this in the pandemic at that day spa hotel where they had like the VR goggles and like the zero G chairs. Like we could bring those for people
Mhm.
if they wanted to have like a brain break. Remember the people that at the Web3 crypto event they had like the goggles things and you could just like take a chill break. Yeah, there's
Yeah, it doesn't even have to be that, you know, if you have zero gravity chairs, great. But, you know, you also need to consider the fact that you're going to be moving from festival to festival. Like they had those blow up, those, somebody had those blow
oh
up
yeah, the blow up thing.
chairs. There's also something I've seen online before. It looks like a giant water weenie. Like you know, I think that those are meant for, but like things that are meant for camping, you know, for moving around a
Yeah.
lot, those with high comfort, eye masks, you know,
Well, that's the other thing, the eye masks. Shelley has a bazillion essential oils. Like this is like a, oh, do you need a little grounding and like just like real quick or like, hey, put these.
that's an offer.
Yeah,
That's an offer where somebody comes in for like, I don't know, like $15 for 20 minutes of solace and aromatherapy
yeah.
at a goddess festival.
It
I
was
mean, I
fascinating. Yesterday, I did some somatic therapy with a gal who's getting her certificate, and it was a really simple exercise we did. And it was just me laying on the floor. I was on a yoga mat, and then I had my legs up on the chair. And I was able to get in a rest and relax. And all of a sudden, I could feel and hear my stomach growling, and I was like, or like digesting. And she's like, "Oh, you've gotten into parasympathetic
Yeah.
rest and relax," and or rest and digest. And I was like, "Whoa, that was
Because you heard your
super
tummy too,
simple." Like, you know, because you get in your mind that you have to do something super elaborate, and then all I did was lay on the floor and put my legs up, and then I went, "Okay, this is something
well,
super
like,
simple for people."
you know, I have like a bazillion self-care tools, right? Like I'll just show it behind us. Ta-da. Like I have like foam roll. I got like 5 foam rollers and all this thing because like dealing with chronic pain for years. which is a whole nother conversation podcast of not doing aligned shit. And I got all these cool things, and we could like lay them out. And, like,
Well, you have the shikati mat, and
oh yeah,
you have people the
acupressure mat.
acupressure mat, because some people, I can't handle that.
But
That's
I
why I
can.
love-
If people enjoy it and they want to scan it, they could buy it, you know, under us as an affiliate. I mean, but
And
it's also just a way to have offers, like you said.
and not only that, but like I even see that as like a mini integration. You know, when somebody's going to a place like the Goddess Festival, they're also maybe going for like inspiration, creativity, connection, expansion of their consciousness. So allowing them to have like a 20-minute integration break, self integrate, you know, where they can block everything out.
Well, I was gonna say, we can
Sure,
create,
sure,
we
sure.
can create a journal very specific for your break. Like
And
with
you know what,
questions like you
you
just
could
said.
even do like a timed event, right? Like, so you could have like people coming in for their own 10, 15, 20 minute, whatever increments you think, break on their own. But you could also offer at like, I don't know, at like 10:30, 12:30, and 2:30, a journaling workshop,
Oh
you
yeah.
know, where you can have them journal, and then maybe they get, you know, they come to the free journaling workshop, they get 50% off of the self integration afterwards, where they can meditate and like pull out what they, you know, what they got from that session
Like,
with you.
and like I was thinking, like for you, um, like you got the scanner code for your Muthalicious cannabis snacks with your intentions and your mood and your energy and stuff. I was thinking next time, like we know several of the food vendors, we could easily like say, okay, go get these in your mood, go get this from them. Come over here. Pesha's gonna walk you through it, and then we're gonna talk the integration of the Pesha experience. What Pesha's explaining the flavors that are going with the cannabis,
Right.
right? And
I
then
didn't explain that. I didn't. You asked me to explain my thing, and then I went into your thing. I was like, wait, I got another idea for you. I want to talk about my thing.
it's all good. But I was thinking that would be cool because that demonstrates the intuitive cooking and eating that you're passionate about. And that includes the integration piece that we're passionate about. And then the people walk away with like a very expanded experience. And then they get to come back down into their body and be like, oh, I like that intuitive cooking, and I like that intuitive eating, and I liked setting out a snack for when I'm gonna have cannabis, and like
Mm-hmm.
that way I'm not just like eating 5 bags of chips. Instead, I'm choosing what I'm eating, and I'm enjoying that. So I thought that'd be a great way to like collab and bring it all together.
Absolutely. I mean, my whole thing is, you know, food rules my life, so that's just the way I work. But in general, I really strive for intentional living. So this entire conversation is about intentionality. And when I think that it really, it speaks volumes that if you just put a small amount of intention into your next move, whatever it may be, whether it's a snack or your next, great idea, it produces so much more, and it is so much more satisfying once you come to whatever thing that you're doing, if you have an intention as opposed to just throwing stuff at the wall and hope it sticks. It's like, and also giving yourself the grace of, being able to harmonize those two things, right? Like being able to do that, like progress over perfection, and just, you know do a little bit of like experimentation, but like you can even be intentional within that.
Right. Um, well, as I think that's a great way to kind of wrap this up, to be honest. Well said, thank you. Um, like what are you currently working on? What are some offers you've been putting out? And
Well, I've been inspired by a handful of people, including you guys, who are talking a lot about like spring cleaning, and you guys are talking about like, spring cleaning of how would you say it? Like not your space, but like your
energetic
cleaning.
path.
Yes, there you go, energetic
Yeah.
path. Yeah, and then I've been working with some other people who are doing like spring cleaning of like the energies and their auras and things like that, spatial spring cleaning, but in a metaphysical way. I have been thinking a lot about spring cleaning in the physical way, but doing it with with intention behind it and not necessarily like the traditional methods. So I am going to be putting together a spring cleaning pantry clean out event. I'm not sure exactly what that's going to look like. I'm thinking there might be I'm thinking that it might be what is it called where you work together online but you're not talking
Oh,
necessarily.
co-working,
Co-work.
co-work.
Doubling or
Doubling.
Yeah, body doubling. That's
a
another.
body doubling.
Yeah.
So I think it might be a body doubling event, but I'm also thinking about some sort of boot camp or challenge wrapped around in it. So I'm working those things out right now. And that goes along into this guide that I'm also working on called the Quick Start Guide to Joyful Intuitive Cooking. And it's all about how to cook from your gut, how to cook with using a recipe as your inspiration versus having to do it to the letter, how to really rely on your loves, your likes, your dislikes, and not putting shame and guilt around things and doing it your own way. And also building a pantry, right? So like you spring clean out that pantry, but then now building a pantry that you can rely on so that you can make meals faster and things that you really love.
Like,
And how do you work with yourself to really figure out what do you like? So that's what I'm working on. Long-winded answer.
that's awesome. Like I was even thinking, like for you at the next booth we do, of having like a little Pesha spices gift box with like your top 9 spices, and you could even just go into Penzies and have them make you the custom box or whatever you want. But like when I filmed you doing a cooking class, I picked up from you like rub the spices together and get like the aroma going and then put it in your food. And then when I cut back, I started, instead of me following the recipe, like being a scientist, I was like, man, I'm just gonna put some stuff together and have a good time. And I'm like channeling like my learnings of Pesha to myself in the intuitive cooking way. That way I'm not like bored or frustrated or whatever. And so like I like what you're going with there, and like I'm curious to see all that roll out. And like spring cleaning is a good time. Like get some new energy in the kitchen, keep cooking in the flow, keep it easy. Because I know when the summer comes for us, we don't want to turn our oven on. It gets super hot in here. And so we're like,
salads and grilling.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and she's the grill meister, which is interesting. I just built the fire.
In fact, I was thinking we could make a fire later.
A good team.
Yeah. Cool. And then, well, do you have anything else you want to say about what you're up to, or you feel pretty good about that?
I feel pretty good about that. If you're interested in what I'm doing, you can follow me on Instagram at Muthalicious. And I think I'm gonna probably resurrect my TikTok as well.
Nice.
I'll just think up, even though I don't want to be on there. But yeah, I'm trying to put into practice what I'm trying to teach, and that like just move forward, progress over perfection, just do the damn thing.
Like people want to see the authentic you. Like, you know, earlier before we started this, we were talking about like, messy hair or whatever. Or it's just like people want to see all of that. And like when Shelley did her 30-day January dry group, you could literally see in the thumbnail of Shelley every day go through like ups and downs of her own self, integrating herself, being
Right.
all of her. And like people now kind of want to see all of you. They don't want to see like just this like curated version. So it's been eye-opening for that, and it's like calibrating your nervous system to that, and like the whole integration thing. So
Like in my mind with cooking, I almost say you should purposely mess up because the most amazing things come from messing up. I just need to figure out how to apply that for the rest of my life.
well, I think that comes back to some things I've been hearing a lot lately of like, can you tap back into your childlike self? Like what choice in this cooking moment would bring me more joy? Like like following the recipe or like playing around, you know? And like sometimes you end up like when I met Shelley, she made this amazing soup, right? She's never been able to recreate it. I'm like, why don't you write stuff down? You know, that was the old chemistry version of me. And then I'm like, oh, that was her cooking in her feminine flow. Like, I'm gonna put this with this and this. And then so that there's always that part of it too. And if you record yourself, then you could go back and then you would know what you did, maybe.
Perhaps, or perhaps it was just that momentary energy that flowed right through her into a pot of
Well,
soup, right?
we literally had a recipe from my mom for lemon curd. My brothers couldn't figure it out. We couldn't figure it out. It was like not setting right, coming out wrong. And I was like, wait, we're doing this all wrong. We need to do it how she would do it. She was left-handed. So I like put the whisk in my left hand and I read the instructions the other way. And then Shelley spotted something and then we nailed it. And then we
Nice.
everybody like, okay, step one is you got to do it how she would do it, left-handed. And then we got it to work. And it was like, and that's part of like being
Interesting move.
Yeah.
I would not have thought about that.
well, you have to sometimes do the unpredictable thing. And that's like the childlike thing. Okay, let's like really get into this experience. This is like the whole set and setting thing. How would mom do it? Mom would do it left-handed. And she would also be holding other things and she'd be running around the kitchen or whatever. And then boom, there it is. Because you got to be in the energetics of how she did it.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
now, as we wrap up, Shelley and I are helping some physical businesses pivot a little bit more online to increase their presence online and bestow their knowledge to brick and mortar businesses online for particular people who are more online. And so that's been fun lately. Of
A lot of ideas,
lot of
creativity.
yeah. So that's been fun. And then I've been helping people streamline their ops and their businesses. I've been filming a lot of people, and that's been fun. And some of the women owned businesses I've been filming. They like my style, and I come in and I film, and they feel comfortable, and like they're like, I know you're there, but like you're not there. And I was like, man, that's like a really nice compliment. I like that. And then Shelley's working on some conscious living events with Kayla.
Some intuitive dances, meditative dances in town.
Fun.
Also moon circles in real life. And then I'm also working on my book to be published in summer 2024.
And Shelley's also started doing some intuitive health.
Yes, intuitive health coaching, readings, helping people with just different things they have going on to maybe look at it from a spiritual,
Like,
a higher level,
we
socially aware.
we just did some hair follicle testing, and that was extremely enlightening. And now Shelley's like, I'm going to do that for my clients now too,
Yeah.
because it's like your hair is telling on you that like whatever bullshit you're doing, it comes up and it's like, okay, messages from the universe and higher self. It's time to take aligned action in, but that's partly, you know, food, supplements, substances, you know, and it's like bringing that all together into like your highest good, which is everything we're all about.
Yep.
So my favorite question I always ask ChatGPT, any final thoughts? Do you have any final thoughts?
Right now I just feel inspired to go like work on stuff, to be honest.
Awesome.
I really want to maintain this wave of creativity I'm feeling right now.
That's great.
That sounds really nice. Let's end there. I'm gonna turn off the recording and then we can chat for a few. Does that sound nice?
Sounds good.
All right, everybody, check down below in the comments. Like, you know me, I will detail the shit out of everything and I'll have all the links ready for you. And if you can't find anything, just DM me and I'll send it to you. Okay, we're good?
Yeah. Bye.